Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love, with no artificial sweeteners, only 30 calories, just 5 grams of sugar, and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. That great Pepsi taste with even more to love. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
Let's be completely honest. Are you happy with your job? The fact is, a huge number of people can't say yes to that. Too many of us are stuck in a job we've outgrown or one we never really wanted in the first place. But we stick it out and we give reasons like, what if the next move is worse? And I've put years into this place. And maybe the most common one, isn't everyone miserable at work? But there's a difference between reasons for staying and excuses for not leaving. It's time to get unstuck. It's time for Strawberry.me. They match you with a certified career coach who helps you get from where you are to where you want to be, either at your existing job or by helping you find a new one. Your coach helps clarify your goals, creates a plan, and keeps you accountable along the way. Go to strawberry.me/career and get 50% off your first coaching session. That's strawberry.me/career.
Hello, welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a psychotherapist. My name is Brooke Brigham, and I'm an attorney, and I'm here with my sister.
Hi, I'm Tess Brigham, and I'm a therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about Meghan Markle.
Ooh, everyone has feelings.
Yes, people have strong feelings about Meghan Markle. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit that I've always gone back and forth about her. Sometimes I think she's great, and sometimes she annoys me.
Yes.
And after doing some research for this podcast, I feel like I understand her a lot better. Mm-hmm. And I also, I was just saying before we started that I think to understand Meghan, you also have to understand Harry. Mm-hmm. Because obviously she's connected to him. That's how we know her. I didn't even know who she was.
Well, I watched Suits.
Oh.
I'm not proud of that.
Never saw it.
For some reason, I started watching Suits a long time ago and was like, it's one of those shows that it's so bad, but you kind of just keep watching it because you're like, it's like I'll have it on in the background. So I just started, I don't know, I think I binged the first couple seasons. And then and then it started to get really bad. It started to go off the rails.
Yeah, well,
it's not a great show though. It's meh.
Yeah, she gets blamed, I feel, for everything. And this really, it's not really about her.
Yeah.
It's really about Harry's journey. And so we're going to talk about that, and we'll talk about her just in general. But one of the things I realized when I was thinking about this, I think one of the reasons why she maybe triggers me a little bit is her confidence. She is so confident. And I feel like, I have a lot of imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. And so when I look at her, I kind of feel jealous, of how confident she is and how, she just really she's a self-made woman.
Yes.
And goes for things, goes after what she wants. And I'm not saying she went after Harry or anything like that, but she's very confident and she's an impressive person. So I think that's what maybe people get.
Well, I have some feelings about that. I have some theories about that, but let's keep going.
Okay.
Because I agree with you. I too have moments of really loving her. I enjoyed her on Suits. I thought she was a decent actress. I mean, again, Suits is not the best show. It's hard to know how great of an actress she would be because the writing's not that great, but I do remember her on Suits. I thought she was good. I thought she was very beautiful. and happy when she and Harry got together. And but I've had, I think much like most people, lots of highs and lows with her and again, this is why I wanted to talk about this, is how much of this is real and how much of this is her being, just a real punching bag for the British tabloids. And so
I think she is very much a punching bag.
Oh yeah.
Well, so I mean, just a little bit of background on her. So she was raised in Los Angeles, and from a young age, she was a pretty remarkable person. She when she was 11, she wrote a letter to Procter and Gamble complaining about their commercials because they were sexist, because they always showed the women, washing the dishes. And they actually responded to her and changed their ads. And there's footage of her. I don't know, she must have gone on some kind of TV show to picked it up, and she talked about it. And she went to Immaculate Heart High School, which is where I think that's where the Kardashians went, all girls Catholic high school.
And her mom's a social worker, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
And dad he worked in television. Lighting
tech. And,
which is why they were in LA.
Right.
Yeah.
So her mom is black, her dad is white. They separate when she's about 2, and then I think divorce when she's 4 or 5. But, they're all in the Los Angeles area, and she, had a relationship with her father growing up, and then went to Northwestern in Chicago.
Which is not an easy school to get into.
No.
Very impressive.
And my mom would want us to note she was a Kappa Kappa Gamma.
Oh, she was. As our mother was, yes.
And, she double majored in theater and something else, like another, and then an academic major. But again, she's, very driven, and she was a working actress for many years, and she was married before to Trevor Engelson. He was a film producer. And then she got the part on Suits, and that's what she became well known for. And she lived in Canada for 9 months out of the year because it was filmed in Toronto. And she also had a lifestyle blog called
the Tig. Yeah.
Which I think for like 3 years she had it until she started dating, or at least
probably once they got engaged,
she shut it down. But she had 2 clothing lines in Canada. So she was doing a lot of different things. She's always been philanthropic and public service oriented. And she was introduced to Harry by a mutual friend of theirs. And, the rest is history, they say.
Did you get any, when you were doing research, because this is one of the things that people are very irritated with her about, that I've read this where she claims she didn't really know who Harry was, that she didn't really know him. And I do wonder if that was taken out of context, because if she really did say, I don't know quite who he is, then that's insane.
Well, I don't know. A lot of Americans don't follow the royal family.
But everybody knows. Everybody. You might not follow all of the ins and outs, but every single person in the world knew Diana and knew that those 2 children.
I think she knew of him. I don't think she was saying I'd never heard of him before. I think what she was saying was that she didn't really know much about him. I mean, we knew him as a child when we saw him at his mother's funeral, but unless you're a royal watcher, I think what she meant was she didn't know anything about Harry as an adult today.
And so that is one of those things, and one of these comments that have been taken, I think, very much out of context and used as a way to villainize her. And people will always say, like, you got to be kidding me. She didn't Google him before, blah, 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 blah. And in my mind, I was thinking to myself, okay, she has to know who he is. But I also don't think that, and there's a lot of people out there, and I guess just because I've never really dated in this modern world because I've been married so long, but it's always fascinating to me how much people they go on they get introduced to someone and they're immediately like just scouring Google and scouring every last thing about them. I don't know if I would necessarily run out and Google someone if I was going to go on a date with them. People are so nutty about that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you're right. I think it was taken out of context, and she's just, people love her or hate her, it seems like. Although, interestingly, when they got engaged, the Harry and her approval rating, it was very high.
Yeah,
in England.
people loved her.
They were
Yeah.
excited about it. I mean, look, their wedding was a huge deal. The streets were filled with people. Everyone seemed so excited, and God, that turned so quickly.
Yeah.
It just, like, what happened, people?
Yeah, and that was the thing that I thought was I've always thought was so strange, because I think people really loved, and she was different. She wasn't the kind of quote unquote, she wasn't Kate Middleton. She didn't grow up around this. She's a Black woman, once divorced.
She was 36.
She was 36, and older than him, and she was this different. She wasn't typical princess. And so I think there was a lot of this excitement, and she was American, right? And oh my gosh, isn't this great? So I don't quite understand when everything shifted. Like, I don't understand what happened here.
Well,
When did people start? Because again, I think I don't think they did anything differently. It's almost like the press decided, okay, let's start hating her.
yeah, it's time. We're gonna. Well, they were digging into her even before the wedding. There was that famous headline where they said Harry's girl is almost straight out of Compton.
Oh yeah, that's
Before they even got engaged, I think. But the British press is just, they're awful. But yeah, everyone was excited about them getting married, and it really shifted, and it shifted quickly, because I just think she was completely unprepared. And this is a very American trait, where it's like, well, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to just, do the best I can. And she's pumped up and excited. She probably saw this as a great opportunity. And as soon as she started, trying to just kind of be herself, they were like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa.
yeah.
No. We tell you what to do, and in that famous interview with Oprah, she and Harry both refer to the monarchy as the firm or the institution. And I was asking our mom, I said, well, what does that mean? Like, who is the firm? Is it a bunch of guys in suits who like tell you what to do? Is it the royal family? And I'm still kind of unsure, like,
Who is the firm?
The firm? But I think it's a combination of both. I think that obviously, like, big picture things probably come from the Queen, and then the more like the detail, minutia stuff comes from these people, these white men who, make up the rules and institute the practices and procedures. But nobody prepared her, nor probably could they have prepared her.
Yeah.
And, it's just her whole experience highlights the differences between Americans and, Britons. I mean, we just have a different attitude.
Yeah.
We have a completely different outlook on life and view on life, and it just doesn't work.
Well, this was one of the things with Meghan that I've always gone back and forth on, which is, on the one hand, I am very much like, God, nothing could really prepare you for that. And I do agree with you. And I too have been in those moments and times where I've been like, I can handle that, no worries. And I've gotten into it and been like, oh shit, I can't handle this. So I do understand that part. And then there's this other part of me that kind of feels like, okay, you're a smart woman. You've watched things. You've seen things. Like, you've got to maybe have a better sense of how this is going to be. And again, I think that that's always been one of these pieces about what does it mean to be a princess? Because I think this is the part stay with me on this. Like, this is the part I think that women especially have such a hard time with is, on the one hand, there is that fantasy of meeting the guy and being a princess and being swept up into this royal kind of fantasy. And then there's this other part of us that really hates that and hates that idea of how women are, expected to, or we only want to meet some kind of prince and be swept off her feet and all of that kind of stuff, right? Like, I think that she represented this more modern princess and this more idea of a modern woman and how she would be if she was, quote unquote, this princess in our world today. And that's why I think a lot of stuff gets projected on her, because I think we're all projecting our own thoughts or beliefs about how women should be, or how, what it means to be a princess, or what it means to be, I don't know, royal or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that in her optimism, she thought that they were ready for a more modern princess, and they were not.
Yeah.
At all. And it all happened very quickly,
Yes,
too.
it did.
She met him, they got engaged in, I think, less than a year. They got married within, a few months, and then she got pregnant within a few months. This all happened very quickly, and she was just completely unprepared. And so famously, there's a footage of them where one night, so she's about 6 months pregnant, and they have to go to some charity event, and they're there, smiling and trying to play the part. And both of them tell the story about how right before they went to that event, she confided in him that she was having suicidal thoughts. She had kind of made a plan in her head about what she was going to do about it. And it was like, wow, that was fast, because I think she felt like, they took away her passport. Her every day, every move, everything was controlled. I don't think they cared what she had to say.
Yeah. No, they did not care what she had to say.
And I think she just all of a sudden felt very trapped. They probably weren't very nice to her. And
I'm sure it sounds like there's 1,000,001 rules that no one wants to tell you about, that you have to just figure out on
until
your
you get
own
there.
until you get there.
Well, and they immediately started criticizing them. Like, I guess they spent £2.5 million renovating the place, their cottage where they lived, which they later paid back. But it just started right away. Like, everything that they did was criticized. And
yeah, they made fun of her avocado. Like, she liked avocado toast. So it was like, or she, some friend of hers said, oh, she's a master at making avocado toast. And now they're like, well, avocados are expensive and you're using, just every little thing that she did. But it started actually right before the wedding, because she tells that story on Oprah about how she didn't make Kate cry. Kate made her cry about something having to do with the weddings and the little girls and the tights or something like that, something like that. But they were already reporting on, so it was like, oh my God, this is amazing and wonderful. She's so great. And then all of a sudden the tabloids are like, okay, let's find whatever dirt we can on her. Let's expose every last thing about her.
And they criticized the parts about the wedding because she had, it was kind of like, for everything they did at the wedding, she had her own thing. So like they had, the old white, archbishop of whoever give a sermon, and then she had a black pastor from Los Angeles come and give a sermon. And then they had like the choir, and then they had a black gospel choir, and people criticized that.
Yeah,
it was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Probably made the wedding a lot more fun.
Probably a lot more entertaining. But yeah, it started in right away and very quickly escalated to the point where less than a year later she's suicidal. So I don't know what else went on. All we know is what they've told Oprah.
Yes.
Who's
and what they're willing to share.
Yeah. And so Harry,
because I want to hear about Harry.
Yeah.
Because you seem to have done a lot more. The second born. And yes, we were just talking about his book, Spare, which I think is going to be so good.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he called it Spare
Yeah.
is, whew, you know?
Yeah, it's coming out, I think, in January. Can't wait.
Yes.
Well, yeah, so I had watched this a while ago, but Oprah and Harry did a series on Apple TV called The Me You Can't See, and it was all about mental health. And they profiled several people who had mental health
Is everyone
struggles.
famous?
No.
Oh, okay.
He's the only famous
really
one.
famous person?
Actually, one of
I'll have to check that out.
the people I think is Robin Williams' son.
Yes.
But otherwise they're not famous. He's the only famous person, but they profile him and his struggles with mental health. And he talked about this even before he met Meghan. It was kind of one of his causes because he suffered obviously if the death of his mother, suffered a lot and struggled with anxiety and feelings, PTSD, whatever, all kinds of his whole life. And so he goes through his story with Oprah and he talks about how his mother dies and basically it's kind of never spoken of again. It was never talked about, let alone, therapy. That would be out of the question. And as he got into his teen years, he started experiencing anxiety and he said the best time in his life was the 10 years he spent in the military because he was just a regular person and didn't get any special treatment. And so I think he had a lot of bitterness towards his father and his brother that had been brewing for years. He said that his father basically said, well, I had to go through these things. I had to do this and I had to live like this. And so you do too.
Yeah. Well, Charles, you had your mother.
Right.
Up until a month ago, you had your mom the whole time.
And that just didn't make sense to Harry. He said, well, if you suffered, why would you then want your child to suffer? You'd think that you would want to, make sure they didn't suffer. And he said that William basically told him, this is just the way it is. Go with the program. It'd be a lot easier if you just would, do what they say and go with the program. So he's very much like Diana's son and really bucked the system. And I think he was unhappy for a very, very long time. And he said that he really didn't get serious help for it until he met Meghan. He said he was very angry and she saw that and she kind of said to him, if this relationship is going to work out, you need to get some help because you just have so much anger, which of course is, just, the underlying is just pain and sadness that he just never dealt with. And so he did, he started doing therapy and so he said, after they got married, he's seeing history repeating itself. He's seeing
very famously talking about that on the Oprah.
Yeah, that he's seeing his wife being completely treated horribly by everybody, not being seen or heard. Nobody cares. He said every time we would ask the firm for something, some sort of accommodation, it was always like, nope, 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 nope. And the no support from the family, no support from anyone. It's just kind of like, just shut up and do your job. Do what we tell you to do. And he was like, my mom was hunted down and killed in a car with a man she was dating who wasn't white. And he said, I'm not going to let that happen. He's like, I'm not going to lose my wife, and I'm not going to be left to have to raise this baby by myself, because he was very clear, like where this was headed. And, and it was very angry at his family. And, they said someone, I think my bet is that it's Charles, made some comment about, how dark the baby was going to be. And, just a lot of stuff. And
well, one of the things that Meghan talked about in that Oprah interview is how much she wasn't really part of these conversations. So Harry would have to go back to his family. So it wasn't even like the two of them could go in together and say, hey, this is what's going on.
She had no voice.
She had no voice. So she would have to talk to Harry. Harry would have to sort of take in what she needed and wanted and how do I do this, and go back to his dad and talk to him about it. And so what I think is so fascinating about this entire situation is what I see a lot of at work with people, right? Like one of the big issues and why so many people, or why millennials, quote unquote, have such a bad rap is because, millennials really came into the world and came into the workforce and was like, I'm not going to be like us Gen Xers, like just take a job and do it for the rest of my life. There's no healthcare is falling apart. Right. There's no pensions. There's no anything. Yeah. So I'm going to go and enjoy my life. And I think that was what's so interesting about this is that how rigid the firm or this, like how much they are so determined to hold on to what they think is. They assume that because it's tradition, it's right. Just because we've been doing something over and over and over again doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And that was the problem, was that they could have had the firm or whomever. They did have an opportunity here. And Charles, they all had an opportunity to do things differently, to like say, okay, maybe we don't have maybe we do treat this particular couple differently. Maybe we do it this way or do it that way, or give them more leeway or stand up for them, whatever it is. And that's a lot of what we're seeing in the workforce, and what we're seeing all over is young people are coming up saying, just because we've been enduring racism doesn't mean we have to keep enduring it. Just because women have been treated this way or whatever it is. And so I think that's the part that's so fascinating, and that she's the one that's been the villain in all of this.
This is all, she is blamed for, this family rift and for Harry leaving. And it's like, I just get the sense this was much more Harry's idea. Mm-hmm. And they even said to the firm, can we go live like in another Commonwealth? Can we live in Canada?
Yeah, New Zealand. There's some other place.
They were even willing to go to, Africa. They didn't care. They were like, we just can't live under these conditions. Mm-hmm. We're happy to go live somewhere and work on behalf of the Commonwealth and whatever, but no, can't do that. No. They wanted to sort of curtail their duties, maybe do less. No, and Meghan tells a story on one of her podcasts. I've listened to a couple of them, but she tells a story about how when Archie was a baby, they went on a trip.
Yes, I heard that.
Somewhere in Africa, right? So they get to the place where they're staying, and they immediately have to leave and go off to some engagement. And so they leave Archie with the nanny, and the nanny was going to put him down for a nap, and she thought to herself, before I put him down for a nap, I'm just going to go upstairs and get something to eat. Mm-hmm. So I'll bring Archie with me. And
apparently she would wrap the baby on her.
Yeah.
Because she was from Africa.
I don't know, but she
said she would just wrap her in one of those.
Yeah, when you take those long, I don't know what they're called, but you like wrap the baby to your body. So she did that. She goes upstairs. Okay, while she's upstairs getting a snack, the nursery catches on fire. Mm-hmm. There's like a radiator in there, something a curtain catches on fire.
No smoke alarm.
No smoke detector. Right next to the crib where she was going to put him down. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then Harry and Meghan come back from their engagement, and they're told this.
Mm-hmm. And the poor nanny's devastated. She's crying. She's freaking out. Understandably.
Well, yeah, and can you imagine? Like you hear that your child just narrowly escaped death
because this woman wanted a snack,
right? And then they're like, well, time to leave now, we got to go on to your next engagement. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of like a microcosm of like what their feelings don't matter.
Nope.
What they just went through, what they are experiencing doesn't matter. All that matters is we have this schedule and we have to keep to it, so let's go. So that's unsustainable,
Yeah. I mean, again, it's so fascinating to look at it and the world that we live in today, just how, and I think the pandemic has really forced people and forced companies to finally talk about mental health and talk about how your mental health health does affect, that mental health is health, and that just like breaking a leg, mental health issues does make it impossible for you to do certain things, and that you do need a break. Like if your
Right.
child almost burns up in a fire, you have, that the kind and reasonable thing to do is to say, okay, let's cancel this event. But no, not for those two. And I think that, and what's interesting too is when they decided they made this decision to leave, they called it Megxit, not Harry exit or Meghan Harry exit, like
again,
Megxit.
she's blamed.
She's to blame because, and I think it's very easy to blame her because, right, it was her presence that, she shows up now, and now Harry wants to leave the monarchy.
Right.
And
But he wanted to leave a long time ago.
and that's the other part of it too, is that, I don't know, maybe things will, once this book of his comes out, maybe things will start to shift and people will see that it wasn't, because the narrative has been that she's pulled him along and yanked him, and it's like, it looks like maybe it was him grabbing her saying, we got to get the F out of here before the shit hits the fan.
I think she was willing to stick it out and try much longer than I think she would have kept. He had this moment of clarity where he knew that, like, if we don't leave, what happened to my mom is going to happen to her. And I think he was the catalyst, and nobody in the family was supporting them. And yeah, I mean,
How old was Harry again when Diana died? 10
he
or
was
12?
11 or
He was 12 and William was 14.
he was 12. He said he was almost 13, I think. He was 12, yeah.
Yeah. So you really have to think about that from a perspective of, because I have a son, he's almost 15. I don't know what he would do if I died. He'd fall apart. I mean, imagine, especially for boys, you have these two boys. This is your mother. Your mother has been just the light. She's the one that gives you all the comfort, because I don't think Charles is comforting
Charles is-
at all. And here you have this mother who was so wonderful to you, and
So
we all
affectionate.
so affectionate and loving and wonderful, and that, and probably a bright spot. And my guess is, I think Diana probably shielded them from a lot of this other crapple. I think she really allowed them to, not be so caught up in being a royal, and then that's ripped away from you, just ripped away from you, instantaneous. And you're 12 years old. You haven't even gone through puberty yet. You're going through puberty. It's like the worst time for anybody. 12, 13 is such a hard age, both of them. And then it's gone.
I feel like, I think I read this somewhere, that she knew, because of the dynamic of Harry being, quote unquote, the spare.
Yes.
That she needed to give him extra attention and make him feel extra special.
Yeah.
And you could tell when you see these old clips, she's so affectionate with him. She is always like, has him, she's like wrapped her arms around him. She's physically, William is always off, and she just really, she protected him. And yeah, he was completely lost. And then later, when he got older, he started, drinking and he's self-medicating and just anything just to get his mind off of, I mean, God, what an awful childhood.
Yeah.
After that. I mean.
Well, and also William, it sounds like William's a lot more like Dad. And I think William might be someone who's like, let's go along to get along. And, this is my place and I'm fine with it. And here I go. And I think Harry's just always been more sensitive and more of, I think he would, even if he was the firstborn, I think he'd, just his personality is such that he really needed his mom. And no, it's really heartbreaking. And here he met this woman, he's fallen in love, and he just wants to have babies with her, and he wants this life. And I don't blame him for running in the opposite direction. Yeah. But everybody blamed her.
Oh yeah, I know. I was looking for, I was trying to figure out all the reasons why the British people hate her. But
yeah.
And I literally Googled what people hate Meghan Markle in Britain.
And why are they?
There are lists.
Okay.
Okay, 1, she's American.
Okay.
2, she's black.
3,
3, her family history. Her parents are divorced and she has kind of an
Strange.
estranged
Yeah, we haven't even gotten
relationship
into what Samantha Markle.
with her father. And then she's an actor. I guess that's unsavory to them. Goes against royal family tradition, is blamed for the royal split. You know, the split between Harry and William and Charles again. They also don't like well, this is like a Harry and Meghan thing. They don't like their mixed messaging. You know, like they fly all these private jets, yet they're, you know, trying to say, you know, save the environment, whatever. But that's stupid. But anyway, yeah, they thought that, people thought the wedding was too black. She has
That's a new one.
she has an agenda to modernize the royal family.
Yeah, see, that's what it is, and it's almost like no, we can't possibly,
Right.
you know. Oh, God forbid we move into a more modern world.
Right. Well, so yeah, what is this agenda exactly? All she wanted was
She doesn't want you to be
little more
racist.
personal freedom,
Yes.
and for people to stand up to her. That's probably another big part of it. They did not the royal family, the firm, whoever, they didn't protect her from the press. Like they didn't fight back. They didn't do anything. I mean, they didn't do anything for Diana either. I mean, you come on, you can't tell me that they don't have any power.
Oh, they do. I'm sure they do.
To curtail this constant attack.
Well, and that was the issue. I think I read that in the Cut article, article that you shared with me, which is that Meghan and Harry, you know, after all being slammed, that, you know, technically there's a way in which you release your child's photo. And it was Archie's photo. And I think Meghan and Harry, I think they were basically like, why am I going to share my photo with you people who hate me, who are laughing, you know, who are stalking me,
making fun comments about my child, their skin color.
And so before I'm even going to show them to people that I love, that I care about.
Yeah.
And so they decided they created their own Instagram handle and put it up there. And so they were, quote unquote, bucking tradition. I will say that this is a little bit of where I think, and it's interesting that you talked about the confidence piece, because I think this is a little bit of where Meghan loses people, which is, and I do wonder if it's maybe something that will get better because it maybe change a little bit, which is this. When she was on Oprah and she was talking about what was going on, that there's something about that. We were fleeing Europe. We were fleeing Great Britain. We were coming here. We were homeless. And then Tyler Perry said, you can stay at my guest house or my other house in Montecito. And oh my God, we found refuge. Now, I do believe that for them at that time, it did feel like they were fleeing. It felt like they were out of nowhere. And I read in the Cut article, which is apparently Tyler Henry. Why do I keep saying he's
not the medium,
not the medium. Sorry.
Tyler
Perry, that Tyler Perry had reached out to her, didn't know her, had reached out to her and said, hey, I see what you're going through, you know, kind of just like, wow, you're going into this really difficult thing. And hey, I'm here for you. I know we don't know each other, but, you know.
He said this is when they got engaged, he said this is a big deal.
Yes.
And I think he had some foreshadowing that she was going to run into problems. And he said, if you ever need anything, please contact me.
So I do believe that as she's telling this story from her perspective, she did feel like she was fleeing. She did feel like they were homeless. She did feel like they were like, how are we going to pay for all of this? How are we going to make this happen for ourselves?
It's the word choice.
Yes. And then she talks about Tyler Perry and Montecito. And I think that that's really where she lost a lot of people because you're fleeing to Montecito. You know, obviously it was like, yes, you were going to land somewhere. Yes, you were going to have a home. Yes, things were going to be paid for. Yes, you'd find ways of making work. And I think that a lot of people felt like she was being, and it was a little kind of insensitive, like the way she phrased, overly dramatic. And also I think it felt very dramatic. I'm not trying to say it didn't feel dramatic to her, but I think that, you know, if you're just sitting there at home and you're trying to figure out how to pay your electric bill, that can feel a little frustrating to listen to this woman complain, which I don't think she was complaining. I think she was telling us the story, but I think those are those moments. Do you know what I mean? I think it's these little moments where she says things that you're kind of like, okay, Meghan, like, I just wish I just wish, and maybe she didn't, it got cut out, but I just kind of wish she would have said, listen, I understand that, that being here in Montecito, we're very, very lucky. And that, obviously it was great that we had this celebrity friend that could give us this place. And we're very, very grateful. I think that she needs to kind of humanize herself sometimes. And I think that's the problem, is that she doesn't humanize herself enough. And I think she is more of a casual, laid back, fun person, but I don't think we see that. And I think that there's a part of her, because she talks about that in the article, I think there's a part of her that still feels pressure to be a princess,
Right.
to still sort of show up in the world.
She still has the title.
And as whatever we project a princess should be. So I think that that's where we see this. And, even still, like when you would see interviews with Diana, even though Diana, lived this kind of what we perceived as a big lifestyle, lavish lifestyle, she was very human. There was a real connection to it in that. And I don't think Meghan does that as well as, and I think it's who she is. And I think it's what you're talking about, is that confidence.
And her age when
And
she
age,
entered.
that too.
Diana was 19.
Yeah.
She didn't have she never had an identity outside of being Princess Diana. Meghan had a whole life. She had a successful life, a successful career. She had her own money. And if they had if they had control of her passport, maybe they had control of all their money. Maybe it really was more of a fleeing situation. Who knows? I don't know. How do they? It's not like they have. I'm sure he doesn't carry around a wallet with money in it, or have. I mean, how they might not have had access to any money.
Yeah. No, I can believe all that. I think it's just like some of the things she was talking about, the whole big thing about security, that if we leave, they're not going to pay for security for Archie or for them anymore, which is a little bit of like, wait a second, we still need a lot of security here.
Well, they never had security to begin with. That was one of the things I think they were trying to negotiate, because one of the things she complained about was that they didn't give Archie a title or security. Well, I did some research on that. Actually, I found this out when the Queen died, when they were talking about all these rules about royals. So only children and grandchildren of the sitting monarch get titles. So at the time when Elizabeth was alive, Archie was a great grandchild. So he wouldn't have gotten a title or security anyway. So I don't know what the big deal was about. She acted like they were withholding something from him. So I don't really understand that. And I can understand the security issue. We live in a strange world.
Yes.
And so for them to come from being protected all the time to just walking the streets of Montecito to mean streets of Montecito.
Well, it's obviously still have security. You got a sense of that when you were reading that cut article. But yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think, it was just a lot. It was a lot to process. And she was postpartum and for part of this time, and then she was pregnant with the second child for part of this experience.
Yeah.
So, God, I just think her word choice was poor probably, but that was just her experience, how she perceived it.
Yeah. And so some of these phrases, they can be a little difficult, and you're just kind of like, you want to be there for her, but you're just like, okay, dial it back.
Just be normal.
Because even in the cut article, they talk about how they went to go see this home, which is like a $15 million home. And her being like, oh, I really want to get this house. How can we afford it? How can we do this and that? Like every other couple in the world, you go and see a house and say, oh, this is so great. I think it's hard. It's like, it's obviously it's a different kind of life, there in Montecito, it's your life there. But I think there is that feeling of this disconnect. Like, I think people want her to be people's princess, but you're telling us about your home in Montecito, or you're telling us about fleeing and, staying in Tyler Perry's, guest home. It's a little like, okay, you're trying to do that with her. But, and then they came here and they were going to do and this has also been like controversy about this, is they signed all these big deals. They signed big Netflix deals with Spotify, deals with Oprah, to talk about all these things. And just like you get upset with Kim Kardashian and the law, I get a little upset with some of the Prince Harry and the mental health stuff. Like there's a little bit of, I understand Prince Harry struggles with mental illness and he's a very famous person. And so people want, he's going to be the person out there that's going to speak for it. But it is a little frustrating when you're like, okay, something that you're an expert in, like, okay, like give him tons of money to endorse your product or give him all this stuff.
What is he doing?
He is, I worked for
mental health.
Well, he's the chief innovation officer at Better Up, which I've worked with in the past, which is a coaching platform. And it's just a little frustrating. Like, okay, you're going to spend all this money on getting Prince Harry here so that you can raise your, now everyone's like, ooh, Prince Harry is part of Better Up. And so therefore it's special. And it's a little bit of like, oh, come on, like, why don't you just pay us more? It's just, I get a little frustrated. I've been asked to, comment on, Simone Biles is, doing this thing and this person is talking about this. I think it's good for these famous people to talk about mental health and to bring it to the forefront. It's just more of just like, but when they start to take a job that could be,
but they're not counseling people.
They're counseling people. They're just, but they're a placeholder. It's like, but no, you're. I don't know. It's hard for me to explain, but you know how you feel when Kim Kardashian says I'm a lawyer. It's that same feeling of like,
they're not saying that they're a therapist.
No,
they're
I
just
understand.
Trying to bring attention.
They're trying to bring attention to it. I understand.
Yeah.
I do. And I think it's great that he did this thing with Oprah. I'm going to watch it now because I never heard of it. So I agree with all of that. And I'm glad that he's being out there and more personable about it. I just get a little frustrated. That's all. But I had heard a rumor that apparently Netflix, this is an article that I read, that Netflix is upset with that Netflix, they have a Netflix show and Netflix really wants to air that show and after around the time that they release the new season of The Crown. But I guess Harry and Meghan wanted to push that because there are some things that are different in his book than what they see on the show. So I guess there's some kind of controversy now.
So their show is a documentary type docuseries of their life.
Yes. So I think this is one of the narratives that we see, and this is what I always question is how, not that they're lying to us, but I don't know how to say it. It's like it does still feel like they still are showing us a version of themselves that maybe isn't necessarily who they are.
Mm-hmm. And
I think that's when I read articles about Meghan, when I see this, I do wonder if like, is this you? Or is this who you want me to think you are?
I'm sure.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with her deciding like, no, I'm going to show you a version of myself. I'm never going to show you all of who I am. And I understand that. But I do wonder if we really know them. Like, I think that's the feeling. Like, there's a feeling of like some celebrities, you feel like I really know you. But this, I don't feel like I know her.
Well, because they're coming from a place where they've both been so hyper critiqued, criticized, analyzed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like they can't win because they have to, if they just are just raw themselves, mm-hmm. people are going to rip them to shreds.
Yes.
So they have to be very careful and they have to, about how they're coming across. Mm-hmm. And like we were just talking about, like the way she's describing things. I mean, everything that they do or say is just going to be, picked apart. And so, yeah, I don't know. What do you do?
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you can't win?
Well, and so I swear to God, every time she releases a podcast, this Archetypes podcast, someone writes an article about it in the page 6, and everything that she talks about in this podcast is picked apart. And so I went back and I listened to, because the one thing that people were talking about is her comments about Deal or No Deal, about how she felt like the topic for the archetype show was bimbo, the word bimbo, and what does it mean? And this idea of that if you're beautiful, you can't be smart for women. And so she talked about her time at Deal or No Deal and feeling like it's, she didn't like to be subjected that way, and she was grateful for the job, but at the same time, she didn't really like being seen as someone who just gets a spray tan and blah, blah, blah. So, but did you see all the news that happened when she talked about that? There was so much stuff, like The View was commenting, this person was commenting, this person was commenting about it. So I went and I listened to it, and I'm like, oh yeah, we really are making a big deal out of nothing. Yeah. Like, she's just telling a story and
how she felt at the time. And
well, and her show Archetypes is very different than our podcast. Hers is obviously very well produced. Yeah. They've got producers, they've got people out there getting
producer
clicks.
Steve.
Yes. We have Steve, but he's not getting clips from us.
He's not getting content.
Yeah. But they're there's obviously a lot of money behind the show.
Yeah.
And it's well produced. And she sits down and writes out this little thing about her feelings about the word bimbo. And this is her story of Deal or No Deal. And that gets completely picked apart. I listened to the first episode with Serena Williams.
Yeah, I listened to that one.
Which was good.
Yeah.
It was a little bit like, I don't like it when people have their friends on. It gets a little, like, people need, like, oh, Serena, remember when you told me this? And, oh, yeah, Meghan, about, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. I know you guys know each other, you're friends. But I thought that was good. And then I listened to the bimbo one. And I haven't listened to any of the other ones, but I was just like, oh, this is a good podcast. Like, it's well done. It's very clear on what she's doing. Guests. She's basically talking about, various, things in pop culture and the zeitgeist. And yeah, that's it. And she gets big people because she's Meghan Markle.
Yeah, I think people just love to hate her. Even Americans now. It's not just, it's not just the Brits.
It is funny. The Brits, I went to this barbecue a couple months ago, right around the time that the Queen passed away. And I was talking to someone who is British, and he lives here now. And I asked him about Meghan Markle. Oh my God, I couldn't even get her whole name out of my mouth before. He's like, oh, God, she's the worst. And his big thing was that he feels like she has, she spits upon the monarchy and blah, 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 blah. I mean, really angry about her. And it's just like, okay, I
mean, come on. Why would she go through all that, get married, do all that? Like, what her plan all along was just to get in there and, spit on the monarchy?
Well, one theory I've heard is that she saw herself as being like, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to be like the Oprah of Britain. I'm going to be that people thought that she was going to, use her, that she thought she was going to be some kind of like different kind of princess. And I think probably in theory, in her mind, maybe she shared with someone like, I'm going to get that in there and I'm going to do things my way and I'm going to do it differently. And we're going to have this different kind of life. And isn't this great? I think something that's like a little thread of something, someone just one little comment or something that she says, someone pulls on it and makes it a huge story. But I've heard that tale too, where she wanted to go in and be, her own version of a princess and kind of have this sort of Oprah lifestyle kind of guru way of being. And that when people didn't accept that she and Harry ran off so that they could have that kind of life for themselves here. I don't know. I mean,
that sounds very calculated for something that happened really quickly. I mean, look, she met the guy on a blind date.
Yeah. She fell in love.
They fell in love. It all happened very, very fast. She was unprepared. He was unprepared. Everyone was unprepared. That's why it just doesn't work to have an American in that role.
Yeah.
It really doesn't work. And, it was a huge deal that Kate Middleton was a commoner.
Yes.
But she's British and she plays the game.
Oh, yeah. Weighty Katie. That's what they called her.
She waited for 10 years.
For him to, And I don't know anything about Kate Middleton. I know very, very little. I don't know how that woman had 3 children and is so fucking skinny. I really want to know about that. What is she eating?
Or did she really have those?
Oh, yeah. But I think the only thing that we really know about her, she has very difficult pregnancies. And so she's super sick during some of these pregnancies. I'm sure they're real kind to her about it. But yeah, I mean, and I think that she was, that's been who Kate Middleton is. You're right. Like,
Yeah.
it's easier, quote unquote, when the person does it very young and kind of just jumps right in.
Well, yeah, and I mean the entire monarchy is based on it's based on blood and lineage and birthrights and all this kind of stuff. So of course, oh, it's shocking that you bring in, an American of another race. Oh, and it didn't work out. Wow, shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's just everyone just got so excited about it, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, it went nowhere.
Well, and also just to blame, I mean, this whole thing too of like, oh my God, she ripped Harry away from William and their relationship and brothers and all of that. And it's a little bit of like, I think it sounds like based on what you're telling me, I don't think Harry has really enjoyed his brother all that much as maybe people think they got along and I think that again, I think that if Harry wasn't going to do what his own father did, which is, hey, Diana, get along. This is just how it is. F you. I'm going to go have an affair over here. I think that he decided, like, this is my wife now, and I've got to fight for my family. And really, truly, if you're with clients that I work with, I always say that the family that you have, that you're building, like, that needs to be your number one priority. You cannot go to your now wife and say, my mother wants you to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, you need to defend your wife to your mother. Like, this is your family of origin is no longer your biggest priority. It's your new family that you're building.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what Harry did is he said, I'm going to protect the family that I have.
Yeah.
This family that I'm building on my own. And if I have to lose these other people along the way, I will, because that's more important to me. And I doubt that he says to them, you can never visit me, like go away. I'm sure they would, be thrilled. But they're choosing to kind of stay away and not.
Yeah, they're trying to establish their own life and, raise their family and whatnot. And
In beautiful Montecito.
Yeah, and I really thought that article in the cut, I didn't really like how snarky the
writer
author was.
I didn't think it was that snarky.
Well, it was there were a lot of things where I felt like the way she described things that Meghan said, I felt it was snarky. Like, I don't know. I thought it was, I don't know, kind of went back and forth between just sort of straight, reporting what she said, but then she'd comment on certain things. I don't know.
I do think that I think it's right now it's become almost like a I think the snarkiness comes from a place of just the fact that they live in a totally different world. I think like Montecito feels like this very foreign place. And it's like the Kardashians, anytime the Kardashians complain about anything, they're like, why are you complaining, Kardashians?
Right.
You have everything and you're rich and you're beautiful and blah, 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 blah. And it's a little bit, I think it's the same thing that if you're this wealthy, if you're this famous, if you're this beautiful, you should not complain and you should not have problems. And if you do, don't tell anybody about them and don't share them. Yet we complain about them not being human enough. And it's the same cycle.
Yeah, it is. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Well, you know what? I was I wasn't anti-Meghan, but I feel like you've really convinced me. Like I'm much more Meghan's, I'm with you. You're right. I did always feel like she got blamed for everything. I thought that Meghan's Harry's Girl Straight Outta Compton is so so horrendously racist. And you've got to be kidding me. I mean, I was on that, but I still had my moments with her of being like, ugh. I think it's sort of like Gwyneth Paltrow, some of these other people that you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, fine. Like, yes, I think you have good intentions, but sometimes it's just a little like, ugh, a little much.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she hasn't been given a fair shake, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, I hope she writes a book.
Yeah, that would be
That would
juicy.
be good. And I think she said in that article that, someday she was going to. She wasn't ready yet.
Yes.
But
wait for her children to get a little bit older.
yeah, and just have some more time pass.
Oh, but that was the other thing that, like, she talked about her morning routine, I guess, on the podcast, and then everyone picked that up and talked about how, Meghan's complaining because she has to bring a baby down and do this and do that. It's like, oh my God. Okay. She's just telling you about her morning
You
routine.
know what? We all have the right to complain. It's hard to be a parent, and we all have
Even with nannies, it's hard to be.
We all have the right to complain about it. God, I mean, just because she's rich doesn't mean that it's easier for her to get her kids moving in the morning.
Yes.
All kids are a pain in the ass in the morning. And it's like, you have the right to complain about it if you want
Yes,
to.
you do. Yes, you do.
Now, Megan's not allowed to complain about anything because her life is just so perfect. She has no problems. No problems at all. So why are you complaining?
Well, I'm excited for Spare. I'm excited to see what they produce of their
I want to
shows.
see this documentary
and see what
about their
happens.
lives.
And the other thing is, if you're not a Meghan Markle fan, I got a crazy idea. Just don't listen to the podcast. Just don't, right? Like, there's that
Right.
part of it too. Is
Just ignore her, just like you would ignore someone you weren't interested
I mean, the thing is that I'm saying positive things about her, but am I going to go listen to her podcast anymore? No. Nothing against her, nothing against anything. I'm not.
Maybe if she has someone on I want to listen to.
Yeah, but I'm just kind of like, it's okay. I don't think that, because I think that's the other part of it too, is people are upset that she makes these, I don't know. It's just, I don't get into it. We're an hour into the damn podcast. So anyway.
Just leave Meghan alone.
Leave Meghan alone.
Just let her live her life. If
Yeah.
you don't want to watch, don't watch.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 20 years from now will be, just like with Monica Lewinsky. Like, we're sorry, Monica. I mean, maybe she will be another one.
People will apologize to her for
villainizing her for just falling in love.
when it comes out, how horribly she was treated and whatever.
Yes. All right. Well, you want to wrap this up? Take it home?
Okay. Well, if you like this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating. And if you have something nice to say, you can even
Comment.
If you have something negative to say, don't comment. You can send us a email at psychlegalpoppodcast@gmail.com. If you have some constructive criticism, we're open to that. And
Yeah.
that's about it. Yeah, we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.